Get ready for 3 interesting real estate facts you should know coming up in this episode of Winnipeg's Real Estate Podcast. Roll that theme.
You're listening to the Bo Knows Real Estate Podcast. Tips and advice for home buyers, sellers, and with award-winning RE/MAX agent, Bo Kaufman.
Hello, I'm your host, Ryan Peterson. Welcome to another episode of Winnipeg's Real Estate Podcast with my friend and real estate expert, Bo Kaufman of RE/MAX Performance Realty. I've had the chance to interview some of Bo's first-time homeowner clients, and they often describe him as that fun uncle you can go to for honest advice. What do you think of that description, Bo?
I think it's cute. I think as long as they're calling me a fun uncle, not a fun grandpa, I'm good. I'm good with that.
Fun uncle. Let's see how you do with this first question. If someone's looking to sell their home, they will find there is an abundance of real estate agents available to help. How can a seller differentiate between the agents? And what are the most important 3 things they should look for in an agent?
Okay, a really good question. When I got into real estate 17 years ago, there was about 1,100 agents, and now there's close to 2,000. So there's a lot of agents out there. So a couple of things that stand out for me are, first, know who you're hiring. If you interview an agent, make sure you ask them that, who are you going to deal with from here on in? Because as an example, I had a phone call a couple of weeks ago from a home seller who had an agent, but it turned out that after that initial meeting, all the work was passed off to an assistant. To make matters worse, that unknown assistant was supposed to have an open house and then didn't show up. So needless to say, these sellers weren't that impressed. There's a lot of teams out there. Agents get so big and popular that their business outpaces their ability to handle it. But rather than say no, they hire assistants to take over some of the workload. And that's when something gets lost in translation, and all of a sudden you hired somebody because you liked their style and you liked how they talked, but that's the last time you see them. So know who you're hiring and who's going to be looking after your house. That's the first thing. Second thing is experience. There's a lot of young agents coming into the business. And I can tell you from experience, the real estate course does not teach you how to market, how to sell. It teaches you some of the basics, the laws, contract law, that kind of thing. But a lot of it you learn through experience. So
the school of hard knocks, right?
That's right. And it's okay. We all had to learn somewhere, but I chose to learn as a licensed assistant to somebody. I was doing that for 2 years so that I didn't just jump into the deep end with people's houses. And I think that was a responsible thing to do at the time. And maybe the third thing is make sure you ask them, who's going to take pictures of my house? There's still a lot of agents who try and cut corners, who use their cell phone. It's just not the same. I had a photographer today take a picture. We showed up in this house and it was a power outage. Actually, it was a condo. There was a power outage. Everything was dark. But she had all the equipment, like the $1,000 plus camera and the lights and everything. So these pictures turned out awesome. But make sure you ask who's going to do that. And if they're going to cut corners, you might want to think about whether you want to do that.
Now, should they also ask about what kind of marketing is going to be done on behalf of their house? Because there's so many different channels now.
Absolutely. But you did say pick 3 things. So I did.
Fair.
There's I've got 10 points, but those are probably it's a good start. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of agents who live and die by the MLS, and that's good. But do they have other websites? Do they advertise it in print media? Some don't. It's extra cost, but you never know who's going to stumble across your listing where. And the more coverage you have, the better.
Now, Bo, the first time I needed a real estate agent, and to be fair, this is before I knew you.
I hope so.
I had friends had recommended somebody they had a really good positive experience with, but when we hired her, we weren't too impressed. Now, is it possible for a real estate agent to be the rep for one person, but be the wrong for another person?
You know what? I focus so much on experience and everything, but it is a personality thing. You're going to be dealing with this person for hopefully just a couple of weeks, but in this market, you never know. It could be for months. So make sure that you get along with them. Everybody has their own different style. I tend to have one. I was a police officer, so I tend to go right straight to the facts, and I stick with the pretty dry facts, but it is personality thing. Make sure you get along with whoever you're hiring.
Now, this next question I hear a lot from people. Should a buyer get a home inspection?
So my short answer to that would be yes, absolutely every time, because it gets me off the hook. Because if there's something wrong with the house, who are they going to call? They're going to call the home inspector that quote unquote missed something. But it really depends on the house too. If we're looking at a house that's 3 or 4 years old, I leave it to the buyer to decide whether it's worth getting a home inspection? I would probably say not, unless the seller did a whole bunch of work on their own, did the basement themselves, and there's some questions maybe raised through the way he did things. But if you're buying a 60, 80-year-old house, I would definitely recommend that you get an expert to go look at it, for sure.
Now, Bo, sometimes the market dictates that a home inspection is not possible because it could make you lose out on the home in a bidding war. Now, so in that case, what should a home buyer be looking for that it could indicate that a home is a money?
You know what? That's a really in-depth question because there's a lot of things that you could look for. One of the things maybe that stands out is, did the home seller do a lot of work themselves? Okay, I'll walk in and all the light switches are done the wrong way, upside down, whatever. So that kind of sends up a few red signals. But there's another way around it. You can have a pre-offer inspection. You can get a home inspector for as little as about $170, $180 to do a 1-hour inspection with you before you make the offer. So worst case scenario, he walks through the house with you, you spend $180 and you make an offer on the house and you don't get it, you've wasted $180. But if you do get it, at least you've had a closer look at it. Or come back with a free inspector, like somebody like a relative or somebody who's in construction, who's a friend of yours. And we can do that before we make the offer. Yes, I'd love to get a real home inspection as a condition, but like you say, sometimes that's just not.
I once had a home builder tell me that if you want to know how well a house is built, and this probably pertains to more to new homes, look inside the closets. And because if they spent good time trimming out and painting the insides of the closets, a place where people don't usually look, it probably says that the rest of the house is built well as well.
That's right. And of course, there are builders that just have some better reputation. So just things like what kind of subfloor did they use? Did they use particle board or plywood and that kind of stuff? But again, if it's a newer house, generally it's up to code, and whether or not you need a home inspection, I'll just leave that up to you.
Okay, question number 3, Bo. It's possession date, and the buyer gets to enter his or her new home for the first time. What are 3 things they should immediately do or look for?
Yeah, great question. Because in Manitoba, the buyer does not get another look before possession date. And sometimes it's a bit of a surprise. Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock rolls around. Hang on a sec. I got a cat digging along here in my garbage.
I was going to say I'm hearing some sort of...
You are, eh?
Yeah.
Hang on. Okay, Sheba, out. Bernie? Yeah.
I swear that Zoom chats are like catnip for cats, hey?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, she doesn't bother me all day.
Yeah.
Jeez. All right, so I'm going to take it from the top. Okay. Yeah, you know what? That's a great question, Ryan, because in Manitoba, buyers do not get another look at the house until it's possession day time. So Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock is what it says on the contract. They have the key, they walk up to the house, and then sometimes it's surprise. So there's a couple of things that they should immediately look for. Number 1 is make sure that everything that's included in the deal, in the contract, is actually present in the house. So what I'm talking about mostly here is appliances and window coverings. We've certainly had the seller accidentally, quote unquote, or it slipped his mind and he took the washer dryer. So you want to know if there's something missing right away.
Okay.
The second thing is make sure nothing's damaged, because the seller has to keep the house in the same condition as what you saw it. So did they scratch up the floors when they moved the furniture out, stuff like that. A big one there is go into the basement right away and check to make sure there's not a couple of inches of water walk the perimeter of the basement, like the rec room floor, to make sure everything's dry. Check the hot water tank to make sure it hasn't burned out, those kind of things. And the third thing you should be doing is reading all the meters, because the seller on their way out had to read the meters. Now and the numbers have got to match. And your lawyer actually wants to have a photograph of the water meter reading, because the water meter reading runs with the title in the house. The hydro and gas are separate, but I would recommend that you take your cell phone and take pictures of all of those meters. And that way you have visual proof and you didn't misread it.
I had a friend that took possession of a home and the shower heads were missing. What course of actions are available to a home buyer if they're upset that something is missing from what they thought would be there?
The end all is usually called a lawyer, but if it's a small thing, call the realtor first, because sometimes it is a misunderstanding. A shower head shouldn't be. But certainly, like sometimes it was a mistake, an honest mistake. The seller forgot about something or took something that they shouldn't have. Call your realtor first, because they're not going to charge you extra. As soon as you call a lawyer and they have to sit down and write a letter, it's so much per per letter and stuff. Call your realtor first. If it's a big thing or the realtor can't get satisfaction for what you're missing, then you're going to have to go through the lawyer.
Then the lawyers get involved.
That's right.
Now, before we sign off on another episode, let's find out what the current mortgage rates are doing.
And for that, we're going to go phone Mike, my buddy Mike at Mortgage Architects, and see what's happening there.
We'll be right back after this short announcement.
This episode of Winnipeg's Real Estate Podcast is brought to you by Total Moving, providing moving services, packing supplies, assembly, and organizing for residential and commercial clients. Guaranteeing no hidden fees while providing the most efficient moving process possible. Call 431-441-MOVE or get an estimate online at totalmovingwinnipeg.ca. That's Total Moving, Manitoba's modern mover.
All right. Mike Schroeder of Mortgage Architects, welcome to the show. How are you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing well, Bo. How about yourself?
Excellent. So we can see that the Bank of Canada raised their rates again about a week ago or so. What has that done to the current mortgage rates environment? What's the lowest you can get, variable or fixed?
Sure. So the funny thing is the rates right now are almost identical. So the Bank of Canada raised the prime rate by about 0.75%, bringing the prime to most lenders to 5.45. So the best rate I've seen right now is about prime minus 1, which gives you a rate of about 4.45% on the variable. Fixed rate right now, you're looking at between 4.59 and 5%. So there's not a big gap anymore between fixed and variable like there used to be.
Okay. Which of these two options is going to go up and which is going to go down? If you had a crystal ball,
Every indication from the Bank of Canada is that they intend to keep on raising the prime rate to combat inflation. Numbers have not come down yet. So I think there's a reasonable chance that prime rate could be increasing during the next Bank of Canada announcement. On the flip side, though, the U.S. just released their inflation numbers on Wednesday, and they came in at just a hair above the target. That's a fancy way of saying the fixed rate stayed put after they saw that announcement. So it's kind of nice to see the fixed rate start to stabilize a bit, but we'll have to see what happens with the variable rates.
Okay, so let's say on a $300,000 mortgage, what's somebody looking at in either one of these rates? 4.5, 4.75?
Yeah, so at a 5-year fixed rate of 4.59%, you're looking at a monthly payment of approximately $1,675. Okay, so the payments are still quite affordable right now. The hardest part is that you have to prove you can afford a payment at 6.59. That's that pesky stress test. And so the biggest piece of advice I have to people, if your pre-approval is a month or two old right now, it may no longer be valid. You really want to go back to your bank, credit union, or mortgage broker and get an updated pre-approval with the current rates right now.
Okay, good advice. And on that note, too, I want to say that right now, despite the rates, right now is a great time to buy a house because there's so many of them available and there isn't a lot of buyer activity going on right now. So don't wait till spring. If you got your eyes on a house, whatever, if you find something out there right now is the time to buy.
Exactly.
And then maybe call Mike and he'll talk to you whether it's going to be an open rate. If you're confident enough that the rates might go down, hey, keep it open. And who knows what's going to happen over the winter.
Everyone's situation is unique. You want a specialist who's going to customize a solution for you and for your finances and your risk tolerance. That's what you want.
Okay, so we'll wrap that up. Thank you very much, Mike, and we'll talk to you soon again.
Sounds like a plan. Take care, Bo.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
It's been fun hanging out with everyone's favorite fun uncle, and we've learned a few things about real estate this week thanks to Fun Uncle's advice. This is Ryan Peterson with Bo Kaufman of RE/MAX Performance Realty, reminding you that you're never alone when you're buying or selling a home, as long as you tune in to the next episode of Winnipeg's Real Estate Podcast. Take care.
And remember, it's Uncle, not Grandpa. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this episode as much as I've enjoyed creating it, because I really do love it. If you found the information helpful, why not download my free podcasting app? That way you never miss another episode. And I've made it super simple too. Just go to boknows.homes/apps. That's APPS. Available for Apple and Android devices. And finally, please give this podcast a 5-star rating. Again, we've made it super simple. Just go to lovethepodcast.com/boknows. Thank you so much for listening. Let's do this again next week.
You've been listening to Bo Kaufman of RE/MAX Performance Realty. Are you thinking of buying or selling a house or a condo in Winnipeg? Call Bo at 204-333-2202. Remember, Bo knows real estate.